to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent. All right, we've called to order. Is there any public comment from the public? Is there anybody with us on Zoom? I see one person.
Yes, she is here for one of the hearings.
Okay. No public comment. Okay. Any board comment?
No.
All right.
Yes, sir.
We'll get right into it. So we've got zoning warrant articles and three public hearings. Well, it doesn't make sense to open the public hearing for the warrant articles and skip one of them, does it? Doesn't
They're
matter?
two separate public hearings.
Okay.
I mean, you have to vote individually on them, so it's completely up to you how you do that.
Okay, the use table is the first thing, and I don't think anybody's here to talk about the use table, if I'm mistaken.
Doesn't look that way.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead to the amendment, the amended zoning map, 199 Mass Ave, the zoning warrant article?
That's correct. It is a citizen petition.
Oh, I have it.
You do?
I do.
Very good.
The Lunenburg Planning Board will hold a public hearing on October 24th, 2022, 6:05 PM, Town Hall, 17 Main Street, Lunenburg, Mass., to hear a citizen's petition to amend the zoning map by rezoning a portion of the land located at 199 Massachusetts Avenue, parcel 074-0051-0000, from Residence A to Commercial District, so the entire lot is in the Commercial District. Materials are available for viewing at the planning office at 960 Massachusetts Avenue in Lunenburg, Mass.
Excellent. Is there somebody that wants to speak to this? Yes. Please step up. Give us your name and address, please. We have 8.5 by 11, I think.
Yeah, they have the map that was included. Oh, look at you.
Hi.
Hi,
Good evening.
welcome. Good
I'm
evening.
Mark Chapdelaine.
And Mike Chapdelaine.
Mike Chapdelaine.
Excellent.
We co-own said property. And it's been owned by us for 53 years. And certainly had we known that we had that zoning issue, we would have approached this a long, long time ago. But it was only came to our attention when we started looking into leasing, selling, or lease-to-own type of property, and appraisals and surveying and all that, when we found out that, lo and behold, of the 16.93 acres that we assumed was all zoned commercial, only about a third of it is zoned commercial, which really doesn't make a lot of sense for a piece of property that size, but that's why we're here to see if that can be rectified. The property has been used commercially since 1938. The Junkler family owned it from 1938 to 1969, and when we purchased it, and it's been used commercially by us all this time, pretty much the entire acreage that's there. Prior to us, it was in fact, and for the short time that we owned it, it was in fact a salvage yard, and we still do own a Class 3 salvage license. Just always kept it. But it's been used basically for storage, additional room for running the business, whether it be the snowplow end of it or transferring bodies off of trucks, that type of thing. But I say it's always been used commercial.
Sure.
And we never realized that it was partially zoned, or mostly zoned residential until we started looking at maps. If you look at the small map, that I think it was the assessor's map,
Yeah,
That
on the
showed-
assessor's site,
that
that
said-
GIS map.
16-point-something acres, give or take, of commercial property. But when you open that map up, zoomed out, if you will, all of a sudden RA shows up
On the back
in the
line.
quote-unquote
Yeah.
back 40. And you start thinking, I thought back to some town meetings from years ago when zoning was taken up and sections of Mass Ave, Chase Road, Electric Ave, said that, you know, a certain number of feet back from the street was gonna be zoned commercial. We didn't pay much attention to it because we thought that that property was completely zoned commercial. And even on our tax bills, it said commercial. So it was a little bit of an eye-opener late this spring when we found this out. And I've attended many town meetings over the years. I've missed a handful, I think. But that's typically where zoning changes take place, is at a town meeting, an article at a town meeting.
The only place they can legally take place.
I'm sorry,
So
Adam?
that's the only place they can legally take
Yeah.
place.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so actually, we're not even doing much at all, except endorsing, right? We're giving a.
Well, you're making a recommendation for the warrant article, and, you know, just to sort of build upon what the Misters Chapdelaine have added, I'll give you a little bit of history on how we got to this point. I think it was probably mid-August when you gentlemen came to see me.
Yep.
Yes.
And they outlined their issues and concerns, and we talked about what their options were. The first option being approaching the board and asking the board to place an article on, and I think by the time we had spoken, it would have been really tight to make the town meeting timeline for approaching the board. They could do the citizen petition, which is the route they took. We also discussed some of the options that they currently have as far as legalities on the property, and the fact that the property has been used commercially for going on 90 years at this point. There is an assumption of pre-existing non-conforming use for commercial within the area that's used, and in order to continue or expand the existing use that's being carried out there, there are options for going to get a special permit to convert one pre-existing non-conforming use to another. And so there is legal remedies that if this zoning change was not something they wish to pursue, or the town chose to not endorse, there are opportunities for them to use, or future people to use the property in a way, but it adds an additional step. And I think in our conversation, and please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, I got the impression the brothers felt that it was cleaner and more advantageous in general for there to be a hard codified zoning change, because what that does is their use continues to be pre-existing non-conforming, but you bring in another set of uses that can be there on the property, whereas when you introduce a non-conforming use in a residential zone, the transfer of one non-conforming to another non-conforming could be wildly different, and you could get a whole litany of folks who decide that using this in a non-conforming way could really think out of the box and pursue that special permit. The change to the commercial zone gives them a bit more structure on what future users may be looking to do, and sort of just unifies the front of the property with the area in the back. So that's my recollection on the sort of history and genesis of this article.
So, a question, if I may. Do we currently have a non-conforming use permit on file?
You do not. There's no such thing as a non-conforming use permit. So the
That's what we don't have.
dealership, the dealership is a conforming use. It's a special permitted use in the commercial zone.
Right.
So that's what had been there previously. That's,
Okay.
a fine use. The nonconformity is the area within the the residential zone.
Okay.
And it's, this use predates zoning in the town of
Correct.
Lunenburg. So by definition, it's
That
pre-existing.
commercial section has no access to it either. There's no way
In the
that.
residential
The-
section?
I'm sorry, the residential
Yeah.
has no access to it.
kinda
We have a
landlocked.
small piece of frontage on White Street, that's between
31
30 and
feet.
31 feet, which obviously, and it's wedged right in between a couple of houses there. And obviously, you can't access residential property through commercial, so.
It's kind of a landlocked piece of residential A.
Well, it's residential where it meets White Street, so that would be accessing residential.
They don't have adequate frontage, and they couldn't put a road in there because they don't have adequate width for a new subdivision road. They also don't have adequate width to meet the radii requirements of subdivision control.
Sure. No, I mean, as far as developability, I don't believe it's developable for residential,
Exactly,
but
right.
do you intend to use that as a potential access point in the future for?
No.
No?
No, but without buying a piece of real estate on White
Either
Street.
side of it,
On
yeah.
either side of that little piece to make it work, that would be the only way that could.
Right.
Even then, it would be a stretch.
Well, what I meant was if you get the change that you're seeking and have the entire parcel as commercial, would you try to get a commercial driveway onto White Street?
No.
No,
And that's neither here
no
nor
need
there.
for it, yeah.
Just a question.
Yeah.
The only thing, so the car dealership is what it exists at, and so a change of use would require a site plan.
That's correct.
And are you familiar with that? If it continues being a commercial use, but it's not a car dealership, then you'd have to come back to this board for a
Right.
site plan review?
Have we?
Site plan approval?
Yeah, I think I understand the question, but yes,
Okay,
if going forward, whatever the change was to the property, currently it is still, we still have a Class 2 license and we're still functioning as
Correct.
a dealership. It
Right.
happens to only be 2 employees.
that's fine.
That are
Yeah.
overpaid.
Yeah,
Fine, I
But
just
as a matter
wanted,
of fact, we got our renewals today for the
Yeah.
Class 2 license.
very good, I just wanted you to be aware of that.
yeah.
Any questions, comments, concerns?
I don't personally have any questions. To me, this seems very straightforward in that we're seeing a piece of property that's been used for similar enough ways and as commercial for 80, 90 years.
Right.
It's not like, excuse me, it's not like there's a situation where abutters would have an expectation that that is residential property.
Not likely, right?
We didn't even know.
Yeah,
And what's funny is all the properties around us that are commercial, their depth goes, one of them as much as 1,600 feet deep, right across the street from us.
Yeah, Acme Carpet, right?
Acme
Yeah.
Carpet and Monterey property and the Mackey property and obviously Walmart, whoever owns that piece, I forget, doesn't say Walmart,
Brixmor.
but, right, it's pretty deep. But, anyway,
Very good.
we would just, like I say, ask for your backing or
Oh, sure, yeah.
Blessing.
blessing.
No, I'm all for, pretty much any citizen's petition I would endorse. Personally, my own feeling is just because it has to go to town meeting, and town meeting is the authority.
Yep.
And I don't see any reason to deny somebody to ask at town meeting. Just
Yep.
doesn't make any sense,
Yeah, thank you very much.
certainly. Amanda, do you have anything?
I didn't, my only concern was, future development, but like Adam said, it's not possible to develop residential in that space without having, a house being sold or something being developed over there. So I think it makes sense to turn it to commercial.
Very good. So do we want to hold off and make our recommendations after we hear the other zoning article?
No, I would, because you're going to make a recommendation on each one. I do want to just address a couple of things. I know I followed your meetings with the select board, and I just want to be clear that they did express some concern about a buffer zone for the existing neighbors, how any development there would affect it. And that's going to be addressed through setbacks on zoning. And the development of this property, if it were to go forward, if you guys decided you wanted to sell the property and move to Florida and this is, New England's for the birds, we want to get out.
I'm not leaving.
I don't think you are, just,
Stuck with us for a while.
it's-
I joke, my next move, Holman Street.
it's still going to require site plan approval because it would be expansion of a commercial use. Depending on the use, it could require a special permit through the zoning board. Those would notify all of the abutting neighbors. They would have the opportunity through that public hearing process to raise concerns and address mitigation potential with the planning board and/or the zoning board, depending. So I know that might not satisfy what some people's concerns are. More specifically, it was raised that there was a concern that the neighbors weren't notified about the zoning change, and that if the brothers, the Misters Chapdelaine had approached the planning board, those abutters would be notified, and that's not a bar that is required within the statute, and it is not, it's something that we've discussed here at the planning board in the past. Unfortunately, I think Matt's the only one who will remember this, and we've gone through the exercise of what does that look like, how do we do that, and it's infeasible, because to notify people of a zoning change, this is a simple one, great. You know, it's easy to figure out where 300 feet is from Chapdelaine, but in the event of our other hearing, a change in the use table within a zoning district, do we have to notify everybody within 300 feet of that specific zoning district, all the property owners? It's not something that was ever envisioned by the statute, and it's not something the planning board does. We use the legal advertising process, and we use town meeting as the way for people to have their voices heard individually. So the process of a citizen petition for a zoning change is exactly the same as the process for a zoning change promulgated by the planning board, with the difference of they had to go and find people to sign and get certified that they were registered voters, and you folks as elected officials get to just send a fancy note to the select board that says we'd like to make this zoning change. But from a procedural perspective, the process is the same throughout.
Okay, so in no way, shape, or form has this come to a town meeting as an article in any other form? Would there be required abutter notification? What you're saying?
Correct. I mean, if they had come to you in May and said, we'd really like you guys to help us with this, you guys were like, yeah, sure. The process at this point would have been exactly the
Would have been
same.
the same, right?
And, you know, I know there was questions about, you know, we should have a public hearing with the planning board. Well, you're here doing that now, and the planning board's article is also being heard here tonight for the legally required public hearing prior to town meeting. So I just want it to be on the record that there isn't a process difference between those two paths.
Are we concerned about the 15 that I counted abutting residences? It would,
I think personally, professionally, I'm always concerned about the abutters. I think right now, there's no proposal to do anything other than change a zoning district. I think you can read into that whatever you would like. I think there's two people in front of us who are the only ones who can speak to their intentions. I don't know that they know what their long-term intentions are.
Right, exactly.
And so, in the event, and, you know, a significant piece of this backland is wet and
There's actually
riverfront.
a built-in buffer.
Yeah,
just
so I
with
mean,
Mother
there,
Nature
you know,
provided
there's,
us. Yeah.
that adds another layer with conservation, and there's, anything that happens back there from a development perspective is probably gonna trigger stormwater, it's probably gonna trigger site plan, it's gonna trigger conservation, so you have 3 permitting processes that are going to be carried through that do include a butter notification.
right.
And again, I don't want to discount anybody's concerns or fears or worries, but there are a lot of additional steps to developing that parcel.
Well, and then also, I think we've been fairly careful about our zoning to include separate setbacks from residential uses in our commercial zoning, so that would also additionally help them, I suppose. But again, as I said, I don't have any problem with letting somebody bring something to town meeting. You guys have spoken your piece, public hearing. Anybody have any public comment on this?
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Dave Rogers, 82 Highland Street. I'm here to speak in favor of it. It's basic common sense insofar as I'm concerned. And I've lived here long enough, and I know what has transpired in terms of the setbacks and the zoning and stuff, and it's as they have said. I mean, everybody thought that, you know,
Right.
Mass Ave, that's the way it was. So I support this endeavor.
Excellent. Thank you.
And I had to park in Ashby in order to get here, because of the plethora of parking and people turning out, but I want you to know I'm committed.
Wait until this guy moves to Howard Street.
It'll be an open house. Thank you very much for your
All
support.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You as well. So do we want to close the public hearing for the amended zoning map?
I would move to close the public hearing for the citizens petition for 199 Mass Ave.
I'll second that.
Excellent. All in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We had one public comment in favor. None of us saw any problems with it. The concerns that were raised that I understood were possibly a lack of notification, a butter notification. However, there is no requirement for it, and everybody is notified of the town meeting where it will be voted upon. Everything looks in order. Without any further discussion, I guess I would accept the motion. To recommend approval?
Well, you were either going to recommend in favor or recommend disapproval.
I would move that we recommend in favor for the citizens petition for zoning change at 199 Mass Ave.
I will second that.
Excellent. Any further discussion? All in favor of the approval, please say aye.
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 Aye. Excellent. That's on the warrant. Now, the two public hearings are, so 88 Mass Ave, we have people for that?
We do.
Excellent. Why don't we go ahead and jump to that? Public hearing announcement. Is this a continuation? This is the first time?
This is an opening.
Is this,
Oh, I put the wrong.
Oh, Adam.
Do you have that?
do I have that? I don't know.
So it's probably after this yellow check sheet. Yes.
Oh, there it is. Okay, perfect. The Lunenburg Planning Board will hold a public hearing on October 24th, 2022, 6:05 PM, Town Hall, 17 Main Street, Lunenburg, Mass, to hear and review an application to grant site plan approval under Chapter 250, Section 8.4 of the Code of the Town of Lunenburg for a use of a shopping center as granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals. Uh-oh.
Sorry.
At 88 Massachusetts Avenue, parcel 076-0002-00. Applicant and owner is Anavasi LLC, 28 Clement Road, Townsend, Mass. 01474. Materials are available for viewing at the planning office at 960 Massachusetts Avenue, Lunenburg, Mass.
Excellent. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. My name is Greg Roy with Dillis and Roy. I am representing the applicant this evening. So here we have filed what we coin as a change of use special permit. And this property is, of course, at 88 Massachusetts Ave, and it's, known, I guess, as the former location of the rental place that Mackey's owned and operated for a while. There's two or three additional tenants in the building as well. There's the pottery place and the barber shop. Am I missing one? That's it, okay. My client, Anavasi LLC, purchased the property a while back. I'm actually not sure of the timeframe, but and is seeking to rent the vacant space that was formerly the rental center. And of course, any change of use to that property would require us to come before your board for a site plan approval for a change of use as one of the review thresholds of your special permit bylaw, or excuse me, site plan bylaw. So we're here tonight. I wanted to say out of the gate that we do not have a specific use established for the larger space. We, of course, have the two existing uses. But the applicant has found, as she has gone through the process of trying to market the property to tenants, that it's very difficult. She's had people come, there was a former application that, of course, would have required a special permit. It's very difficult, it's been very difficult for her to market the property with not having the ability to sort of lease the space without approvals, right? So to have to tell a future tenant that, yes, we can look to lease you the space, but we have to first go and do a planning board process, site plan process first before we can do it, and that's a couple-month process, has been difficult. So we're here tonight as a little bit of a different application than what you're used to, perhaps, but we are here, as you read, under the shopping center provision. And what we'd like to ask you this evening to approve is any use that would be allowed by right in the district. We understand that under the shopping center provisions, we understand that there are certain uses in your bylaw that would require special permits. We are not asking you to grant, obviously, carte blanche on those. We understand we would need to come back through a special permit process, either with your board or through the zoning board of appeals for those. But we would like to sort of open up the list of uses so that the property can be more effectively marketed. So what we've done is we put a site plan together that looks to maximize the number of parking units on the site. We have proposed some changes to the front, particularly the frontage of the property. So I'm going to try to do this. If you can visualize the property, there's a very large, wide, most of the frontage has direct access onto Massachusetts Avenue. There's where the sign is, right in the middle there, is the only location where you can't drive directly from the Mass Ave pavement into the parking area. So what we're proposing is actually to consolidate that curb cut over in this location here, and then we would restructure the parking spaces down across the frontage. So it allows us to actually get a few more parking spaces on the property. We're also proposing to utilize some of the back of the back area of the property for the use as employee parking spaces. This area that you can see that's hatched is an existing, I'll call it gravel, but it's recycled asphalt product. It's sort of reclaimed asphalt compacted in place. So we're proposing to utilize that area for 4 employee parking spaces. And then we have some existing, some more proposed parking spaces right there on the side. One of the interesting things about this is the property line, as you can see, is this solid straight line that comes down like this. That's the existing property line, which cuts through the middle of the paved area that is sort of historically used for this building. And I'm honestly not sure exactly why it wasn't conveyed, but there was an easement, a use easement that was conveyed along with this. So this hatched area here, this polygon here, which includes that paved area, actually has, Anavasi has the rights to use that. But for the purposes of this, this analysis, we've documented that we can put the parking on the property, on the actual physical property, so that the only thing that we're using that lease area for is really maneuvering in and out of those parking spaces. But the actual infrastructure itself would be located on the property. Other than that, there is no, other than the changes that we're proposing in the at the front of the site, which would really just be to add some green space. We're going to actually be taking out some paved areas there. We're not proposing any other changes to the property. No additional pavement would be proposed. We're actually, this plan would actually have a net reduction of impervious area on the site. We are, of course, proposing to restripe the parking lot so that we can accommodate the new parking space and the new traffic flow on the property. There's no changes in the back of the property. All of the existing gravel pad that we have in the back would be preserved. So because of that, we don't have any wetland impacts because there's actually a perennial stream and bordering vegetated wetland in the back of the, actually off-site, but in the back of the property. So we're not proposing any new construction in the back of the site there. No changes to drainage patterns and the like. So that's my opening pitch. I'm sure you may have some questions on that, but I wanted to start there. I did go through, like I customarily do, and gave a rather in-depth project narrative, and I'm happy to go through, like I have in other situations where we're really not asking you to build a new building or new parking lot. We're really just looking at existing facilities that we're proposing to change the use. I have asked for several waivers from your regulations, not from your bylaw, of course. So I'm happy to go through those if that pleases the board, or I'm happy to stop talking and have you ask questions, however you please, Mr. Chair.
I have a glaring question right now, just,
Sure.
so I don't forget it. There's also a deed line in the back that goes through that, that wrap area.
Yeah,
So that doesn't appear that you have full access around the building?
right. So we're actually just going to be utilizing that existing paved access that accesses in there for those parking. So we didn't show any, we're not relying on that sort of through circular access, although it does exist. But we're not relying on that in terms of how we laid out the site.
Okay. Any other questions to this point?
What's the width of that aisle?
This one,
Yes.
less than 24.
Yep.
Let me see if I can.
Yeah, that came up the last time this was here. It's not big enough for two-way traffic, as I recall, but,
It is not. I think it's normally in the 12-foot range. So it is not a formal, that's why I didn't do patron parking back there. We're proposing to use that for employees, employees only.
so, all right. Any other questions at this point? Adam, anything else?
No.
So let me just recap what you've told us already. You've got 4 or 5 existing uses, separate uses
There's 3 leasable spaces currently.
currently.
There's 2 existing uses in there, and then there's the larger space that was the rental place that's vacant.
Okay.
That's the space that's looking to be marketed.
The impetus for this is not change of use, it's a use granted special permit by the zoning board.
It's a what? I'm sorry?
A use granted special permit by the zoning board. So the owners of the property went to the zoning board and were granted a special permit for a shopping center use.
Okay.
So they've triggered site plan through the grant of that special permit. And shopping center is more than 3 uses
Right.
on a site in a building or buildings totaling greater than 5,000 square feet. So my understanding from conversations I've had with the owner, and I mean, these go back 3 or more years, were that the Grand Rental Station, the former Grand Rental Station site, or condo unit, whatever you want to call it, is just too large for what anyone other than a very specific use is looking to lease. And their hope was to divide that into 2 or 3 potential units in order to bring the unit size down and to be able to attract a wider variety of tenants. Nail salons, hair salons, takeout restaurant, retail of some manner that is not like a 15,000 square foot use. And so they went and got that special permit for the shopping center use. And thus, they need the site plan to go along with it. They had originally come to the board asking for a waiver with a less precisely drawn parking plan, with the intent of just refilling the individual space that was Grand Rental Station. And they have since decided that That's not going to work for them because nobody wants a space that big these days.
IKEA.
I think it might be a little small for IKEA.
Yeah, a little bit.
If you have any contacts over there, we'll take them, though.
Trader Joe's would be the only thing, but I,
So the caveat that I heard, which didn't sound like it was a technical request or anything, was that allowance of anything by right, any use by right, any other use by special permit would have to have gained a special permit regardless.
correct.
And is that how our is that shopping center? Is that what it?
Shopping center, yes, that, it works the same way. So it gives you the ability to have a use that is the multiple tenants on a single lot in a building or buildings. And anything by right would be contained therein by right, because if it's retail, they can just go in, they pull their building permit, they demise their space, they operate. If they want to sell marijuana, they need to come and get a special permit.
Right.
I'm using very direct and historic references to this property, so. Or even if they wanted to sell cars. We had a gentleman just down the street from here who occupied a small unit in a retail strip where he was wanting to sell, had 8 cars. And he was, I think, also doing auction sales,
Yep.
which was probably more of his business than the units he had on site. But that would be something that theoretically one could do from something like this.
And that was
And that would require a special permit.
car dealership would require a special permit.
Correct.
Okay. So, if you change from one by right use to another by right use in a space, would that trigger a site plan
It
approval?
does trigger site plan. Historically, the board has entertained waivers for some of those.
Similar to some.
And in general, the intent behind that, when the board developed that portion of the bylaw, was to ensure that as uses change, there wasn't a significant increase in intensity or parking requirement that may have additional impacts outside of the site that the board may need to be aware of. So if someone were to permit a convenience store at one of these sites and the change of use was to a professional office, you're looking at a probably net traffic and parking decrease. So the board would most likely entertain waiving that. If it was going from a single desk office to, I don't know, something that people.
Barbershop?
What?
A barber shop?
A barber shop or something that people are in and out of, Dunkin' Donuts. Then the board might say, you know what, this is a little more intense, we think we should do a full-blown site plan, and we should look at, how you're queuing, where you're parking, what your entrance looks like in relation to this traffic flow. And I think,
Yeah,
in general, the board has been very reasonable about this, and I expect, the owner owns another property in town and have several long-term tenants, so I expect they're looking for a similar situation here.
Yeah, I mean, that was a good summary. Really, we're trying to establish a number of, trying to maximize parking here so that when and if and when there's a bona fide use, we have a plan on record that you folks have seen that documents the number of parking spaces that we could put on the property. Yeah, because, truly, it seems like that's going to be the most significant issue with a by right use. I mean, specially permitted uses such as a marijuana place or something that was previously proposed, obviously has much more discussion points. But our intention was to get this plan on record so that in the future, when there is an actual use that comes before you, we can do, hopefully, what would be a quick parking analysis, come back in before your board, for sure, and analyze that or any other issues as well. But I believe that the parking would probably be one of, if not the only, issue that we'd be looking at with a by right use, so that we at least, if nothing else, we at least have a little bit. It's a little bit of a more streamlined thing. We don't have to the applicant doesn't have to wait to, hire an engineer that can't get to her plan for a couple months.
And
So-
depending on what it is and how it plays into what's already there, it could be a modification to the existing site plan the board has already approved. It could be a de minimis change to just add a notation of the use is X, and it has parking of X, denoted on the submitted plan that fits into the approved site plan in this way.
But again, if we allow this to be, it's already been allowed to be rezoned as, reallocated as a
Correct.
shop.
They've been given the special permit by the zoning board.
Okay, so they quite honestly don't have to come back to this board for change of use.
Well, no, yes, because the change of use and the special permit are,
Mutually
they're
exclusive.
After this.
they're both triggering, they're both threshold requirements for site plan.
I get you.
So I've framed it as they're here because they got a special permit. They're also changing the use. The two are sort of part and parcel, but the special permit changes the intensity of the use a little bit because there will be more units. So to me, that is a bar that the board is looking at. That both are true.
Two separate triggers.
Correct.
So the fact that we needed a special permit triggers site plan approval. Also, the fact that
You
we're looking
changed
to
the
change
use.
the use needs a special permit, see what I'm saying? So it's a bit odd, but we kind of need both. They're sort of mutually exclusive, although they do, not completely exclusive, they relate, but.
Well, I'm gonna back up a little bit, and what my first comment should have been, thank you for getting rid of that massive curb cut, that open,
Oh, yeah, right. Well,
mean-
we thought that was important.
and please thank your client, that I actually kind of begged them to do that initially when they came last time.
And we think Mass Highway is gonna almost demand it too, so.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, you painted in there right away.
Yeah.
We won't talk
happy.
about that.
Yeah,
Anyways, yeah, so that is huge improvement. So anything else? You want to let him move on to his waiver request? Are they waiver requests technically? or-
Yeah.
they are, yes.
I have one question about just the site layout as presented. And I'm sure there's a very good answer for this, but I'm just not aware of it. I see snow storage in part, one of the multiple locations for snow storage being right on the, I lost the word, my goodness. The
Island?
not curb cut, which would be whatever we call that.
The island.
Island, thank you. Is that a potential issue for line of sight for cars entering or leaving? Or is that something that's accounted for in the design already?
I mean, that's a great question. It potentially could be. We can certainly walk that back. We showed it there because that's where, customarily, that's where you're gonna that's where you're gonna develop a snowbank, right?
Yeah.
When you-
And the
Follow.
board could condition the approval that snow storage within the site triangle of the entrance not be higher than 3 feet.
Yeah. My only thought there is we're doing so much to improve the traffic safety here. And I don't want to put too much of an additional burden on the applicant, but by the same token, I'd love us to keep on that trend and not improve it and then possibly create a visual barrier that could make it maybe not worse.
Yeah, I think the 30-foot site triangles and a restricted height would,
Great.
give them some,
Yeah, it's a little difficult though, because if we have another winter like we had in whatever, 2015, and Mass DOT has now developed a snowbank all along that, just in virtue of the fact that they've plowed
That's
the,
fair.
well, and that's why I say the site triangles.
Yeah.
Because honestly,
Yeah.
at the far end, at the eastern, or the western side of the property, it's gonna be irrelevant.
Yeah,
But if you
yeah,
keep
yeah.
the 30-foot
yeah,
triangle at the,
yeah, just push
where
it
the
back.
curb cut is, just chop back that portion so
Yeah.
people can see around it. You're gonna, accomplish a lot of the same thing.
Yep.
Yep, very much so, thank you.
Yeah, I don't think we can object to that. No, good question. So I'm happy to go through the waivers.
Okay.
So do you have my submittal narrative? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm on, I wasn't astute, and I didn't number the pages, but I'm in section 4.0. Section 4.4, which says compliance with planning board rules and regulations. And the highlighted ones are the ones where I've asked for waivers. So I'm going down to number 8. Requirement is to show existing and proposed utilities in adjacent streets. This, of course, would be in the Massachusetts Avenue. We do show power and things that are easy to locate, but we're not proposing to do any changes to the site utilities on the property or as they connect to to Massachusetts Avenue for either water or sewer or gas. So we're respectfully asking for a waiver from that plan requirement. I want to keep rolling. If you have any questions, just stop me. Number 9, existing and proposed on-site structures in all buildings within 200 feet of the property lines. So we've, of course, shown the structures on the property. We actually showed the one immediately abutting the property, just so you can have context, abutting the property to the west. But again, given that we're not proposing a new driveway here, we're just kind of consolidating, we're respectfully asked for a waiver from having to show structures within 200 feet of the property. Number 10, existing and proposed driveways and driveway openings within 300 feet of the proposed property lines. Again, for the same reason, we did show the one across the street, you can see, but we're asking for relief to not show beyond that, and to need to go 300 feet from the property. Next one would be number 16. Existing significant trees or vegetation, proposed landscaping and screening indicating distinctions between proposed and retained vegetations. So in the areas that we're proposing to work, which is primarily along the Massachusetts Ave right away, there's of course no vegetation there. We are proposing to turn that into green space. Around the rest of the property, it's actually, there's really only one small corner back here that's vegetated. All of this site is actually off the property. So again, we're not proposing to change that vegetation at all. We're not proposing to modify that pavement or the gravel pad in the back of the property. So we're asking for a waiver to show those trees on the property for that reason. Number 17, on-site existing and proposed potable water, drainage, sewer systems. This is sort of in the same spirit of the utility utility requirement that I mentioned earlier. We're not proposing any changes to those, so we're asking for a waiver from those. No changes to water, drainage, or sewer on the property. 22, a photometric map showing on-site foot candle information. Again, we're not proposing any changes to site lighting, so we're asking for a change on that, a waiver on that. Architectural elevations with proposed facade, material, perspective views that demonstrate the project's relation to surrounding parcels and street. Again, where this is an existing building, we're not proposing a new building on a vacant piece of property that might have a significant change to the neighborhood character. We would respectfully ask for a waiver from that requirement. And then last, on a 25H, there's a requirement for impact reports. Impact reports for each development will be required to accompany site plans and shall address traffic, public services, and fiscal impacts, environmental impacts, community impacts, and any effect upon adjacent properties. Again, this is I feel like a broken record when I do this, but this has been a commercial property for quite a while. We're proposing it to maintain a commercial property. We do, as we've discussed, intend to change the use, but respectfully asking for a for a waiver from providing those formal impact reports as well, given that it's not going to be a new, brand-new site on a vacant piece of property. That's the balance of the waiver request. In all other respects, we comply with your site plan requirements. Section 4.5 of the application goes down through section 8.4 of your zoning bylaw and documents compliance with with each section of your zoning bylaw. Again, not asking for any waivers to that, of course, because it's a bylaw, so. That's it.
All right, anybody have anything on those?
I do not.
Nothing from me.
They all seemed quite reasonable to me, and not that it seemed unreasonable, but the driveways within 300 feet, is it more than 300? Well, I don't know. Where is how close is the nearest driveway going northeasterly? Would that be
good
Fallon, or
question.
would that be the gas station?
Because
Because I think the driveway you show, I
Animal?
think, is the dentist office, is it not?
the animal place, is it?
Fallon, right?
Yeah, Fallon, I think, would be, I can't.
No, that would be southwest. Aren't they past there?
Why can't I picture it?
You get the gas station on the corner.
Maybe
and then
this
you
is
got
Fallon, this could be Fallon.
No, that's,
The
you're right, it is. That's Fallon.
Yeah,
So
so then,
The house
dentist.
and the.
so then it would be the orthodontist?
Okay,
Orthodontist?
Yeah, so the gas station, the dentist, Fallon, and then the
Yeah.
house.
And then the there's a house, that's right, there's a house, then the orthodontist, right?
The house and, well, let's just look.
And
Yeah,
the
I-
Aubuchons.
Should have printed a Google Earth image for you.
That's all right. We all know the area fairly well.
Yeah, and then the next entrance on this side is, of course, Mackey Building Center, and then down this way, I guess there's something for this. It's not very formal. And then down you have, I think the next building is the restaurant, right?
There's a
think
building,
so.
well, Bootlegger.
Bootleggers?
Yeah.
That's 2 uses ago, isn't it? Bootleg.
Yeah, so whoever they were last.
So
remember.
it is Fallon across the street. It's Fallon and the house that is not really a house. The next one to the east is the dog training
Oh, yeah.
on the opposite side of the street. And the next one to the west would be Aubuchon and/or Simon Pier.
Right. Benjamin Builders, too, between Aubuchon's and,
Yeah, I consider that the same entrance. I
Yeah, I
mean,
guess
it's all one
Yeah,
big
you're right.
curb cut.
So this is something that we should vote on. Is that the end of your presentation?
it is, yes.
Okay. Do we have any further comments, questions on it in
so-
general?
I have more of a broad question that's really for you and Adam. Because I don't think while I've been sitting on the board, we've done a site plan for a nebulous future. And this may be, I'm not familiar with this process as opposed to this is what's definitely going in. So I'm not questioning necessarily if this is appropriate. I just haven't seen it before. And I'm curious if that's the case or if this is fairly run-of-the-mill or...
Anytime the zoning board, in my opinion, anytime the zoning board of appeals gets involved, it's not run-of-the-mill, because it's not within our bylaws.
Well, it is within our bylaws that just, we want to have specific control over it. I would say that this is not a common situation. I don't think it is bizarre or out of character for what's happening. And the way that I look at this is it is reuse of an existing property. So what we're dealing with is a building and development that is what it is. The ability to shape that is incredibly limited. So we're looking to ensure that what gets done there is done in the safest, most efficient manner that can be done with the constraints that exist on the property. And I know that this property is trickier than most due to the fact that it has been owned in common with the building center next door. And there are, I don't know any ins and outs or secret details, but I imagine that there are probably some conflicts internally within a group of that size that affects the way that the land was divided, which resulting in this hashed area that you see that's being leased but hasn't been conveyed. And if you look at the plan, you also see there's a corner of the building that has an encroachment that is cleared up through this land lease. And, but I know from conversations I've had with Mr. Dillis and some of his associates that they have been working for almost 2 years to try and figure out what the best solution to what they're doing here is. I do remember the board inquired about closing the curb cut. It was my first recommendation to the property owner. I think it's an excellent addition to that area. That property is underutilized. The pottery place has done really well there, probably against all odds. The barber is still there. He's been doing well. Every time I go by, there's someone in front of his shop. So getting people in there benefits the town, benefits the property owner, and they've already spent significant money on upgrading the property, and I think what they're looking to do is have the ability to market it. And I think, they could not exercise their special permit for the shopping center, and they could find another retail client, and that would cover, they wouldn't need a change of use because what was there was retail previously. And I think they're making an effort to improve the property, improve the area, and I think what they're asking for is some partnership from the town in making that happen. I don't think it's not something we're going to see a lot of. I don't think it will be the only time we see it, is I think the way I've looked at this.
Thank you for more of the context on that as I was trying to piece together, because I very much would like to be able to help a business owner in town to make the property more well utilized for exactly the reasons you cited. But I want to make sure we weren't. I didn't know if this was something that needed extra scrutiny because it wasn't done frequently, or we could be opening up other issues without seeing it. But okay, great.
And I mean, I think that that's always a possibility, and even with new development, there's those possibilities.
So one question I have is has the fire department weighed in? Have they seen, or are they aware of the potential?
I did not get any comments from the fire department that I recall.
I guess my only concern is they like to have access around the whole building when it's dense.
And they do have access around the whole building. Honestly, the hardest part for them to get would be the western side. My recollection is they tend to look for a minimum of 3 sides of access, which they have. 12 feet isn't a fire lane. I think 18 is what the code says. That's
Yeah.
really neither here nor there because the building is there.
It's
We're
tricky.
not,
Yeah, it's
it's nothing new. And, when this was built, it was a completely different set of stuff that they were looking at.
Well, I want to make sure that now that the curb cut has been reduced, and thankfully so, is that the fire apparatus
The
has
fire
the ability.
department,
They need to have the ability to maneuver the site.
they
with the vehicles that
they made no comment. They signed and said that they've seen it and have no comment.
Okay.
We do have pretty generous radii there.
Yeah,
I think it's 30 feet.
Did you do any movements at all on this?
I believe so, but honestly, with a 30-foot and a 24-foot throat,
You can get at least two sides, I guess, which,
Oh, yeah.
okay, and then loading dock. Is there a loading dock on the building?
There is not, although there's a garage bay right here, right? But it's not a loading dock.
Yeah, I think it was just a storage space.
It's either there or it's here.
I thought it was under the
Overhang.
the awning, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's in the
So
back.
it
I'm trying to remember the last time I rented something there, but I think it's back in there. Yeah.
Okay, so basically, we're only seeing the site plan review. We've got the site plan approval in front of us now, but the zoning board has granted that, but you said that they might
they've
not,
granted the use.
the use, but they might not change the use? Is that what you said?
No, I'm saying that they could choose to not exercise their special permit.
Oh,
And then if they rented to a retail client, all of this would be moot. And they're not doing that. They're looking to upgrade and go through the process and do the things that they're supposed to do.
right, but that could be, that's a maybe or it could be.
It's a maybe or it's not
what-
anything that anyone has said that they're doing. It's,
And what we're doing tonight is approving the site plan.
Correct.
For any
correct.
allowable use.
And, well, most importantly, what I think you're doing tonight is you're giving them permission to close that curb cut and formalize it, the
Well,
parking.
Yeah, I mean, we
It-
can't, we can't just take that as the end-all be-all of everything, because they could add 5 units in there and have a parking requirement greater than the 29 spaces, couldn't they?
I think 3 additional units would be the maximum of what would be reasonable. I think more than likely you'll see them add 2. And if they do add the third, it will probably be 3 much smaller units.
Yeah.
Which, again, then reduces the parking quota.
Well, yeah, well, most of those uses are based on square footage.
Yeah,
So it's,
yeah.
if, you know,
The smaller you
square
get, the
footage
less
is what the
parking
square
you're.
footage, we're not proposing any more building square footage, so, you know, if they, you know, did a use like office, right? The, you know, parking is calculated based on square footage, so if you have 3 separate office spaces, it's gonna be the same amount of parking as if you had 1 large one, right? See what I'm saying?
And actually probably less because it's by net square footage, not,
So if you have storage spaces and things.
yeah, storage, halls, bathrooms, and same thing, you know, if it's 3 retail spaces, they're
Right.
all gonna have more storage space and smaller floors and, so, yeah, I don't think you're up against something that's gonna create a giant parking headache. And if you are, it's probably a special permitted use,
That's
which
right.
would make its way back here anyway.
Okay. So, like retail, or I would assume, well, it's an existing retail, so.
Correct.
A different retail wouldn't require it. So, I mean, what if, I don't know.
I mean, you're talking restaurant at that point would be the potential generator, but that's by seat. So you could limit the number of seats based on parking spaces. And most restaurants that you're gonna get there are probably not gonna be sit-down. It's gonna be a turnaround place where, you know, maybe they have 6 seats because,
Well, and again, at that point, assuming this is a favorable outcome, there will be a maximum number of parking spaces that the building commissioner can use to, you know, to approve site
enforce.
plan, the building commissioner can use to enforce the parking, or to review a proposed building permit application for a restaurant, and he can compare what's approved to what is proposed, and so.
Sure.
That's our intent, to sort of establish that.
Nice. Anything else? I'm gonna open it up to the public. If any, is there any public comment?
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Dave Rogers, 82 Highland Street. I followed this site, and that's the reason I'm here this evening. The last time I was here, and I would like you to go back into your records.
I'm sorry, Greg, can you take him the mic?
Do you want me to, kind of,
How many hands are you?
yeah.
I would appreciate that. I'm sorry.
No, I have it over at this side. No, this side. No, just I've followed this, and that's why
Were you?
I'm here this evening. And
Who are you? You just got the mic.
what?
Who are you? You just
I'm
got...
sorry, I'm Dave Rogers, 82 Highland Street,
Thank you.
Lunenburg, so on 462. I just don't understand this, because never, the last time this property was here, before this board, shopping center that said never came into the, I mean, this is about as much a shopping center as I am a jockey. Having said that, when we voted last time, it was voted so that people, the owners could expand their horizons and get more tenants. I don't understand why this is all necessary, because we did it before.
Are you talking about the marijuana application before?
The what?
Are you talking about the zoning board hearing?
I believe so.
Because we haven't seen this since 2019, and that was shortly after they purchased it, and they came in with something that the previous owner had sort of laid out for parking that was not as comprehensive as what we have here.
Okay.
They did go to the zoning board and get a special permit for use. And I think that's the hearing you're talking about.
Okay.
And
So-
so when the zoning board approves a special permit, they're approving the conceptual idea that the use on that property would be acceptable and not have negative effects on the neighborhood.
Okay, I stand corrected then, I was using the wrong group, but the discussion was so that they would do things so that it would expand the horizons for the site and allow people to lease space. And I think that's what you're doing here, right?
Pretty much.
Okay, but what I don't understand is, and, you know, I have the highest regard for this firm and this gentleman, as well as you. I think you have are about to approve all kinds of waivers, but you don't know who's going in there. So how can you do that? I mean, 23 waivers? I
No,
mean, it
there's not
just-
23 waivers.
How many waivers on here?
A handful.
So,
How many?
can I speak to that, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
No more than 10?
Through the chair, the waivers that were applied for are for the site plan approval process and the drawings and information required to be submitted. And as pointed out by Mr. Roy, and borne out by the fact that the building exists and has for decades, most of them involve infrastructure to the building, information on the plans about what the proposal is to locate the building. So it's a series of rules and regulations on drawings and information and contained therein for the development of new commercial properties. And this is an existing commercial property, so the waivers that the board is looking at granting are in reference to the amount and types of information contained on this plan here.
That's not contained on this plan that would be required
Would
for
be
us
required.
to approve a new building.
So if you want to hang around and watch the next hearing, those plans have a significant amount of information on them relative to those items because it's a greenfield development where there've been new building. This is an existing building that they're looking to infill and reuse.
Okay, it's clear that I'm confused on some things, nomenclature and what have you, but having been here before, the whole intent was to open up the opportunities for more spaces, and you know, nothing else was changed. It's the same footprint inside. I mean, there's no renovation per se until the fiasco across the street, which I'm not going to go into. So I just want to make sure that we're not approving something, or I'm going along with something that we'll see again with some far-reaching changes, because it seems to me that there's all kinds of waivers here. And how many waivers are there? 8. I stand corrected. I thought you said maybe.
The numbering convention is just the numbers of in the regulations. So I was
Okay.
saying the numbers that we,
Okay.
for which we're asking.
All right, I stand corrected. I heard 23 and then 8. It just didn't ring right to me. But I am taking back, finally, Lunenburg has got a shopping center. I mean, my God, this is no more a shopping center to me.
This is,
Well, shopping center is a term of art. It's a defined use with specific parameters.
this is our third, actually, I think, right?
Well, I mean,
Walmart, Ixtapa, and then this
yeah.
one.
Lunenburg Crossing, Lunenburg,
Whatever they
Crossroads.
are.
Time
The
to
cow
change.
field, the inn, and this one.
So what about if attorneys and real estate or an insurance broker, I mean, it seems to me that there's some wiggle room here so that people can get in there and do whatever they want. I don't know.
Well, anything they do there is going to require an occupancy permit and building permits, and those,
Building permits?
if they're going to demise the space, yes.
Yeah, okay, well, that's, yeah, all right.
And those all require a review of the site plan approval to ensure compliance.
Isn't that a fait accompli? I mean, you've got to do that, but didn't you just give okays to do that with these waivers?
Not yet.
Oh.
That's why we ask,
Because you don't know what you...
we ask public comment before we do that, so we can get this information.
Right. Okay, thank you so much for your time.
Did you have a specific waiver that you were against?
No, I just, as I tried to articulate, I guess I didn't do a very good job. I thought I heard this before. You know?
Okay, so being here, the zoning board meets here and the planning board meets here, so that's what, in this room is what you were talking about. I get you. That's an honest mistake. Yeah, so oftentimes the interaction between those two groups, it confuses me as well, and, you know, it's, thank you for the input. So, yeah, as has been revealed, I think the waiver requests are fairly benign, aside from the driveway thing that I did ask about. Are you pretty much done with your presentation, yeah? We've asked for public comment. Any other questions for the applicant before we close the public hearing?
I do not have any.
None for me.
Okay. Can we get a motion to close?
Yep. I would move to close the public hearing for, as I scroll to the top, 88 Mass Ave.
I will second that.
Excellent. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Very good, thank you. Were we supposed to do the waivers before we close the hearing?
No.
No, okay. Good. So, as we've discussed, does anybody have any single issue with any of the waivers?
I do not.
And I love when Greg comes to present to us, because he does there's 23, I think, requirements that we have for site plan review. He itemizes each one of them and basically lists it and says nothing, no impact. So that's why he numbered them the way he did. And then we have a checklist that there's only 4 X's on for waiver requests, which makes it even more confusing. So, any discussion or inclination on granting the waivers? And I think, unless there's anybody is grievous about them, I think we can do them en masse.
I have no discussion, and I'm comfortable doing it mass.
I agree.
Then I would accept the motion.
How, do we cite the waivers as they're
That's why I
listed
had that up.
here?
4.4. I would say that as requested in project narrative, section
Okay.
4.4. Does that
Great.
work? Yeah?
I would move that we approve the waivers as requested in project narrative, section 4.4.
I will second that.
Super. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of granting the waivers, please say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, so the waivers granted, the site plan approval is, again, that's what we're doing, site plan approval.
Correct.
I would like to see us condition, and again, y'all know the better terms for it than me, but for the line of sight for the snow, just to make sure that doesn't become a hazard on an already busy road in town? I don't know if other members of the board agree or
I
disagree.
don't disagree, but I'm wondering what the I mean, so as not to impair sight distances? Would that be
I
adequate?
mean, what I would
How is
suggest
that
is
enforceable?
oftentimes in zoning bylaws that reference landscaping, there's a 30-foot sight triangle at either side of the driveway. So they measure 30 feet back and 30 feet out from the driveway, and anything within that triangle is considered sight distance, and plantings need to be below 3 feet, because that's about the average height of a car window, unless you drive a big car, and then it gets higher, but you can see over the 3 feet. So I would craft a condition that falls in that general mold.
I'd be very, if that's already a standard that's accepted, I'd be very comfortable with that.
Okay. Then, would that be a motion with the condition?
Yes.
So do we move just the condition, or do we move for approval?
Well, you want to include the standard conditions as well.
Okay. So, I need help with my wording here. I'm not that good. Are we moving to approve, or are we moving with
You're
conditions?
moving to approve with conditions.
Okay.
Including the standard conditions,
And the,
construction hours you'd have to come up with, and the special condition that was discussed.
okay.
So you might want to talk about construction hours before you make a motion as part of your deliberation.
Yep.
All right, so what do we got typically?
7 to 5, 8 to 3 on Saturdays, no Sundays or holidays in a commercial area is your fairly standard.
And 75 Mass Ave is not a residence?
It is a house. I don't believe it's been occupied as a residence in a decade or more.
Well, there's no construction proposed.
How are they going to put in the island?
The island, yeah, that's right. They're gonna have to get a DOT, have you gotten a DOT?
They'll need
permit?
a DOT permit.
Okay.
DOT is,
They're gonna be probably more,
they're local biased. They want to force them to wiggle through you guys before they really squeeze them.
do we need to mention that in the approval?
You don't have to. You can. I mean, they're not going to do construction out there without it.
Well, they already have, but.
So there's no residences in use nearby?
Not that I'm aware of.
I would be, unless there's a reason not to, I would be comfortable being as lenient as possible, or as feasible with our approval then, because if it's not going to ruin anyone's day, I don't see a big reason to place tight limits myself.
Well, the earlier, the one thing that I would say is the earlier you start, the more impact there's gonna be on the regular traffic on that road. And I don't know how long of a project, this would probably be a couple days.
Yeah, I would imagine, but most of their staging would probably be on site. So it would be less impactful than, say, DOT doing it, because you're probably talking about a few hours of saw cuts, and
And
most of the setting could happen from interior.
And these highway construction workers, they're not gonna wanna wait till 8 or 9 o'clock till traffic dies down. No. So I think that the standard hours would be applicable.
Okay.
Are you good with that?
I am.
All right.
Yep.
Great.
You good with the motion?
Yeah, so we have to state the hours in the motion, which are, what are they?
We could say the standard conditions with the standard hours?
7 to 5, 8 to 3 on Saturdays.
Do we need to specify that?
It just makes it easier.
Okay.
You could also say the hours discussed. I mean,
I would move that we approve the site plan approval for 88 Mass Ave with the standard conditions, with the additional condition as discussed for the 30-foot sightline triangle and 3 feet max height within that. And for construction hours of 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday to Friday, and 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturday, with no construction on Sundays or holidays.
I think you nailed it, yeah?
Did.
I'll
Excellent,
second that.
excellent. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Aye. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we are done with that? Aside from, you.
I'll have
Print that
an
tonight?
approval for you. I don't have an approval for you tonight.
Okay.
I'll have one for you next one.
260 Flula Road, you are up. Thank you for hanging in there.
Again, is this 260?
However,
Whatever you're comfortable with.
is that ours or is that Greg's?
No, that's ours.
Okay, yeah, whatever. Whatever you would like.
I think this is 260 Palula.
You don't have to stay the whole time.
This one's 260 Palula, I think.
Does it say 260 for you?
Does it? Does it?
The underlined, didn't it? Or maybe it, oh, this is a continuation, right?
Yes, it is.
Oh, yeah, here it
You don't
is.
need to
I
read that.
found it. Oh, I don't have to read it?
You're not even on the packet.
Probably not. Yeah, Greenfield might have been a stretch on this one, right?
Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, Chris Anderson with Hannigan Engineering, here on behalf of Fitchburg Land Property Owner for the construction of a 367,000 square foot warehouse distribution building. The board might remember this from several months ago. We've been working in tandem with 3 other boards, the Lunenburg Conservation Commission, yourselves, and the Fitchburg Planning Board and Conservation. And so it's been a lot of moving parts, so I'd like to apologize up front that this has been so delayed as it is now.
Hasn't been on our plate.
It's because I've been bugging Adam. So as I said before, it's a 367,000 square foot warehouse building. The property is currently located between both Fitchburg and Lunenburg. It's split about 50-50. I think it's 20 acres in Fitchburg, 19 in Lunenburg. And the property, and the building itself actually straddles the property, or the 2 town lines, if you will. We're providing 2 means of access into the property. Both will be located along Crawford Street and Airport Road, which for the intent of this conversation is one and the same. It's just a designation that the city of Fitchburg split the line on at one point in time. 2 means of access. A employee and essentially pedestrian entrance will be located along the Nashua River side of the site, which is located in Fitchburg. A secondary site will be located near the Tango Construction Yard, which is one of the abutters along Crawford Street, which is located along the easterly side of the site as well. This secondary entrance will be used primarily just for truck entrances into the rear courtyard area itself. This driveway will extend, as I said before, into the courtyard to provide access to the loading docks for the proposed building. The employee entrance will create a circular loop road, which will provide access to 4 sides of the building, as well as pedestrian or employee and pedestrian parking throughout the area. I should note that the vast majority of the employee parking is currently located within Fitchburg. Lunenburg's the limit of the Lunenburg work is associated purely with the truck storage area and emergency access paths. First, domestic sewage, we're intending to connect in, into the municipal Fitchburg sewer system as well as their water system. Drainage utilizes a series of underground storage systems and infiltration basins. We have had this reviewed by both Graves Engineering, the Lunenburg peer review, as well as another third-party engineering group with Fitchburg, and they came up with pretty much the same general comments and concerns. We've addressed those earlier in the month. We have yet to receive a comment back from either Graves Engineering relative to these comments, so I'll leave that to the board. Most of the comments were pretty innocuous, more concerned with typographical comments and making sure that notations and additional nomenclature was rectified on the plans. One of the few comments I will bring to the board's attention was that Graves Engineering had concern over the slopes on the site. Originally, we were intending on using riprap slopes to stabilize a 1.5 to 1 slope along several portions of the site to limit the amount of grading work we had to do. We rectified the plans by installing some retaining walls through certain portions of the site to help minimize that and reduce the slope down to a typical 2 to 1 on a cut slope, which is very typical engineering nomenclature for this kind of a site. That being said, I would note that the only other major change that's occurred relative to the layout is we've shifted the driveway along Airport Road for the pedestrian entrance, only to increase the sightline distances at the Nashua River Bridge, if you will. That's located again within the city of Fitchburg, but I thought the board should know that we've made provisions and worked with several entities to increase the safety of the site. With that being said, we did request a few additional waivers from the design requirements of the bylaw. I can run through those real quickly if the board would like.
Any questions so far?
I don't believe so.
Yes, please.
So we've included the request to reduce the overall depth of the actual parking spaces. As I stated earlier, the mass majority of the parking is located within Fitchburg, which has an 18-foot depth parking stall. The Lunenburg bylaw requires 19. There's a total of about 40 parking spaces located within Lunenburg. To make life easy for construction purposes and layout, we're requesting that to be reduced down to the 18, which is a very also typical dimensional requirement in many other cities and towns in the area. And the second one would be a vegetated buffer strip along the periphery of the property. As I stated earlier, the site is historically industrial and is surrounded by several industrial uses, including a contractor's yard as well as a landfill. And those are the two primary points, or pinch points on the site, if you will.
Thank you.
So this would be the first point in the northern corner of the property. Let me do this. In the northern corner of the property, immediately adjacent to a landfill, there's a pinch point that naturally forms. We're cutting down into this area, so we're only providing about a 15-foot swath of vegetation between the property line and the actual limit of our work. Again, this is all industrial. That portion of the site will never be developed or on the abutting property because it's a landfill of unknown origin. So we're requesting a waiver from that. And a secondary pinch point is more relative to just natural vegetation, which doesn't occur on the site besides tall grass. This would be bordering the Tango construction yard. In this area, we're doing a significant cut into the slope. So we're cutting into the slope by about 26, 28 feet. So we're creating a naturalized berm between our property and the Tango property. And the lack of natural vegetation that's there now precipitates our request for that one. Those would be the only two areas where the limit of natural vegetation does not occur on the site or creates a natural buffer between the abutting properties.
Wouldn't believe how difficult that was to word when we were realizing that some of these sites won't have natural vegetation.
Yes, so as I brought up to the board couple meetings ago, or last meeting, the site has been used as a sand pit, a wastewater systems area, if you will, and a general dump yard for the last couple decades. It's generally a very run-down piece of property, and the redevelopment of this is a much more significant improvement over the existing condition than it is now.
Now, you you're doing that as a redevelopment in Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that doesn't have anything to do with what we're dealing with, right? I mean, no? Like, we had to bend over a little bit for the Unitil, because that was a redevelopment.
Well, and I mean, I think from the stormwater perspective,
Okay, that's right.
MEP is gone because of our stormwater bylaw, but he's 80-50, 80% TSS, 50% phosphorus instead of 90-60. So he gets a little bit of a break.
Yeah, and to that point, this site this gets more into the theory and engineering practice behind stormwater design. The site is entirely sand and gravel, so it infiltrates quite a bit.
Yeah, so it's
By-
just whooshing right down.
It's whooshing right down, and when you look at the pre-development versus the post-development, the pre-development is next to nothing. For a 40-acre site, you would expect to see a significant amount of runoff coming off the property. You don't get that with this kind of a site naturally, as it sits now. So by default, we have to infiltrate everything back into the ground and try to match what the pre-existing condition is. And as part of this design, we've actually forego our ability to claim redevelopment, and it's all full compliance with all stormwater management standards.
Which I mean is honestly probably pretty easy with the infiltration that
Very
you're
easy.
getting. 'Cause really, the infiltration is the hard part most of the time, and
Yep.
the treatment is the easy stuff.
Yep. So this system is designed to accommodate, the 1-inch impervious area for the phosphorus treatment, as well as hitting all the required TSS requirements, purely by infiltration. So pretty much this site will not discharge up until, I believe, the 25-year plus storms. So it's quite a bit of water being retained into this site.
And you said there were, what, about 40 spaces in Lunenburg that would be impacted by the waiver request?
Yes.
I looked at that. I'm surprised it says 19, because when we did that, 180 is always my target for,
We did 380 because it was the space in the aisle that required to back out. That was what we replaced. It was, right? So
Yeah.
it makes sense that,
it should be, 9 by 18 I think is a completely reasonable parking space size.
I think the only other town I've ever worked in is Petersham, and that was a 10 by 20. So,
Yeah.
for the board's reference.
No,
But
I-
those spaces would be located in this portion of the site.
yeah, no, I mean, my plow truck would stick out with the plow on it. The hitch would be probably a hazard in the aisle. Anyways, so that's actually, if we grant the waiver for the reduction in the depth of the spaces, that would be a 400 square foot reduction in pavement as well.
Does granting that waiver does not, by my understanding, create any weird precedent we have to worry about in the future?
No.
Because waivers are one-off, right?
Yeah.
Great.
I mean, it's site-specific. We're just getting all the nice ones tonight, because this is also an uncommon but not unusual situation. Anytime you have a site that crosses municipal boundaries, especially when they're nice enough to put a building right over the town line, there's going to be some oddities to it.
Like dealing with 4 different boards and commissions.
Yeah, lots of fun. So, did anybody have anything that stood out in the waiver? No, we'll wait for that.
I mean, you can do it however you would like. You can take public comment. If you want to vote on the waivers now, you can. You don't have a peer review. You can condition the receipt of the peer review. You can say we'd like to wait and actually receive the peer review, and continue this and vote at the next meeting. I don't know if you have additional questions, comments.
So the peer review beyond this dated May 23rd?
Correct. Because what happened was that was the peer review. They filed with the city of Fitchburg sometime in July. Fitchburg decided to retain peer
Yes.
review.
So the timeline, if you will, we all submitted to both Lunenburg and Fitchburg all at the same time. Went through very similar process. We went through a planning board meeting with you guys as well as with Fitchburg Planning Fitchburg Planning had some comment and concern, so we went through that rigmarole process with them. They waited a few months, and then they requested a third-party review of the stormwater design, which unfortunately pushed us out a little bit further to get their comments addressed as well. So it's been just a step after step trying to get everybody in line so that the plan that this board acts upon is effectively the same thing or very similar as the plans that the Fitchburg boards and commissions act upon as well, so that there's
And I
no
know that
confusion.
Jeff Walsh has talked to the peer review engineer that Fitchburg hired, has had conversations with Mr. Anderson, so really what it is Jeff just hasn't issued a letter. He's been involved in the conversations and the changes and where stuff is. The review letter just hasn't been finalized.
Would you concur with the previous statement that his major concern was the slopes?
That's what I recall his major concerns being.
And they haven't changed since the previous?
Just we've made them shallower, if you will.
Okay. Oh, they have then, they've improved.
Yes, he added some retaining walls to address the reduction in slope.
Okay. Beautiful. So what do you think? The waiver for the parking, I think I might have kind of suggested when you first came to us, because it was brought up then, and it would be, I'd be surprised if the papers actually did it, quite honestly, just from experience.
No, that's fair.
So that's one of the, what, three? Was it three you were requesting?
Those are the two new ones. The previous two, relative to providing the scale of the plans at 1 in 50 rather than 1 in 40, just because it's a absurdly large site. And if I was to do 1 in 40, I would have 80-page plan set for you guys to review. That and the request for the trees, because of the large scale of the site and the undulating topography, there's not a lot of large trees that currently exist on the site. And if they are, they shouldn't be because they're probably invasive.
Very good. So does anybody have anything that they don't like about those requests?
No, I'm very comfy with them.
Likewise? Okay, I guess we can, well, we'll just keep going out of order, I guess. We can approve those en masse if you like.
I would move that we approve the waivers, the 3 waivers as discussed for 260 Falula Road.
I will second that.
Excellent. Any further discussion about the waivers? All in favor of approving the waivers, please say aye.
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 Aye. Excellent. The waivers are approved. So I don't think there's a whole, public comment. Is there any public comment?
Mike Chapdelaine, 208 Leominster Road. I'm just being nosy. Where is this property?
So this is along Crawford Street and Airport Road. Do you know where Needham Electric facility is? It's right behind that.
Okay.
So there used to be an old sand pit that was utilized by City of Fitchburg. And then-
Approaches into Lunenburg?
Yes.
So you know when you go down Whalum Road and you get to Summer Street? And you get the Amtrak station, or the train station, it's on the other side of
On the
that.
other side of the tracks, this land continues over there.
The river doesn't split it.
No,
No, all right.
The river borders it. The river, Baker Brook is effectively the limit of the property.
Oh, okay. Not-
So
not
there's,
natural river.
yeah, so you have Summer Street, you have the railroad depot,
Yeah,
the river,
yeah.
and then our property.
the town line is beyond that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, then I guess we're ready to close the public hearing?
That's up to you. The board can decide whether they want to close it tonight and condition receipt of the final engineering review, or whether you would like to continue it. I don't think either is an incorrect approach.
Okay, is anybody overly concerned about the second peer review? In fact, has it been paid for by the client already?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean,
And-
we have, the money is in escrow, it's not,
Is it gonna hold you up, is this gonna hold this project up, waiting a couple more weeks?
If it's, we still have to go through the Fitchburg process as well. So the permits are probably going to be up in like another month as well for that. We have Fitchburg playing tomorrow night. So a delay in, I believe, 2 weeks is the next
Yeah.
meeting. Wouldn't be a incident or a significant impact on the client.
and it will allow me to write the decision,
Okay.
and then you
he
can have
give-
the
you can-
decision when you vote.
And then we can sign it and he can take it with him. Would he need to?
No, he doesn't get to take it with him, because it goes to the town clerk.
Oh, that's right. Okay. You could have the satisfaction of knowing that it was done, though.
That means a lot more than you think nowadays.
There you go. So why don't we go ahead and continue why don't we get a motion and for the next meeting on November 14th
I would move.
at 6:05?
I would move we continue the public hearing for 260 Flulu Road to November 14th at 6:05 PM.
Great.
Second that.
Excellent. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Excellent.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
See you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now we back up. Let me see, we've got just the use table, right?
Yes.
And do you have that one?
Ew.
Excellent.
Yep, I think this is it. The Lunenburg Planning Board will hold a public hearing on October 24th, 2022 at 6:05 PM, Town Hall, 17 Main Street, Lunenburg, Mass, to make alterations to Code of the Town of Lunenburg, Mass, Chapter 250 zoning, Article 4 use regulations, Section 250-4.1G use table by changing 4.1K 10 motel in the commercial district from Y to SP-Z. Materials are available for viewing at the planning office at 960 Massachusetts Avenue in Lunenburg, Mass.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
Well, this is the article that I brought to the board, excuse me, a few months ago, where the motel use in the use table is a by right use in the commercial zone. In looking further, the hotel use, which is functionally the same use of a different physical construction, is a special permit. And so whether this was an oversight or a Scrivener's error, I thought it best that the board look at how to address this, and my recommendation, and the board agreed, was to classify motel as a special permit through the zoning board, and this is to not exclude the use of motels in the town, but to be thoughtful that our commercial areas are often narrow, as we heard in the last hearing for the warrant article, and do regularly abut residential areas, often with active residences very close by or sharing a border. So the use of a motel could have significant negative impact as a by right use, and there are probably limited areas where it would be an appropriate use in whatever context, and the special permit would allow those instances to go forward, but would give the zoning board some authority to look at other areas and say, no, we don't believe that that's an appropriate use for that area.
All right, so,
But-
good.
So I feel like we've talked about this already and.
We have.
Agreement.
We have.
Yeah.
Yep.
We just, this is just the dotting the i's and crossing the t's.
Yep.
So, seems pretty straightforward to me.
I
All
agree.
agreed?
Mm-hmm.
Any public comment?
There's no one on Zoom.
Literally no public? Okay. Any reason we can't close the public hearing?
Nope.
All right.
I would move we close the public hearing for the, for Article 20. Is that good?
I'll second that.
Excellent. All in favor of closing, please say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, so we recommend approval?
Yep.
I just
If,
want-
if that's what you would like to
So-
recommend.
Recommend
Yes.
approval, or, I think we're all in agreement?
Yes.
Okay, so I would accept a motion to that effect.
I would move that we recommend approval on Article 20.
I will second that.
Excellent. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Excellent. So we have wrapped up public hearings, and that's it. So, we have, which may be a first for both of you,
Oh, these are so much fun.
a right of first refusal, parcel 3, Sunny Hill Road. So, have you guys, either one of you been through?
No.
So,
I don't think so.
when people put farmland, agricultural land or farmland or recreation land in chapter, which is a tax benefit to the landowner, they have what they call first right of refusal when the landowner wants to remove it from that designation.
Okay.
The 40B on Howard Street is a perfect example. That was chapter property, it was a farm. Then to get it under the purchase and sale agreement, there was the requirement that it first come to, I don't remember if it was this board, or if it was, I wasn't a member then, but
So removal is done in two ways. There is the having a qualified offer, which means you put the property up for sale and someone signs a purchase and sale with you without contingents. So, contingencies of a certain ilk, as outlined in the statute. And the town has the right, at that point, to match that qualified offer and buy the property within 120 days. The other is a change of use. You have land that's in Chapter 61A, which is agriculture, and you say, you know what, I want to build a house on it. And I want to no longer use it that way. The town then would have to get an appraisal on the property within 30 days and execute the purchase at a fair appraised value within 120. So this is a right of first refusal based on a qualified offer. And town council reviews these to identify if the submission has adequately met the statute, and he has judged this one to have done that. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there, I just thought it would be
it's quite all right.
a little bit of extra helps.
Sure.
So this property is on Sunny Hill Road. It's classified as 3 Sunny Hill Road, which is deceptive because it's actually at the top of the hill, but it touches all the way down to Leominster Road. So I'm sure if you've driven by Leominster Road recently, there's a for sale sign on the right-hand side before you get to Sunny Hill Road. They just built that white house with the nice landscaping on Leominster Road. This land is next to that, and it goes all the way up to the top of the hill. There is 29 acres, and allegedly there were 5.64 acres kept out of chapter to allow for 3 buildable lots. When it was surveyed, it was found that only The only total land that was counted and noted was the amount of chapter land, and it was noted at 25 acres, give or take. And so when they did the math, with 25 acres, there was 4.3 acres left. The person purchasing that land is intending on building 3 houses. Thus, they need to remove the 1.34 acres from chapter. And that is what is up for question this evening, whether or not there is any planning or development purpose that the town would have for 1.34 acres of landlocked land. At one point, the current owner had asked if the town would be interested in purchasing or receiving the land as a donation. The Conservation Commission turned that down, as most of the land has a perennial stream and is protected through the Wetlands Protection Act and the Rivers Act. So now the current potential buyer is looking to solidify that there is the opportunity to build 3 houses.
So, and not that I'm intending to, but the only thing we have any authority over right now is 1.34 acres.
Correct.
But we would have to purchase the entire thing if we wanted to deny it?
No, you'd be able to purchase the 1.34 acres. That's all you'd be purchasing.
For what, for $95,000? For
I
$95,000?
believe so.
So basically, they're saying that 1.34 acres is been offered $95,000 for it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's bona fide.
And what?
And town council has said that, regardless,
Well, that's what the purchase and sale says.
yeah, so, and they've already offered the gift of it to the town, the conservation
Yes.
in general.
Correct.
Just conservation, yeah.
Because the property owner, the buyer can purchase the 4.3 acres free and clear, because that's not included in the chapter. So it was always excluded from the chapter grant.
Now, you said allegedly, when you mentioned that, you said allegedly there've been 3 parcels excluded.
Well, no, there was, allegedly, the parcel was over 30 acres, and they excluded 5.6 acres. But when when an actual survey was done, the parcel came in under 30 acres. So they were 1.34 acres short. And the way that the lien was written specified that there was 25 acres of land within chapter. So in order for this to be buildable for 3 lots, they need to remove this 1.34 acres from the chapter to have a 3 buildable lots.
So then they are gonna retain the ownership of the addition, of whatever the difference
Correct.
between, oh,
That's correct.
okay.
So they're gonna retain the ownership of the no, the buyer is retaining, is buying the entirety of the parcel. But they're leaving the remaining 24.25 acres in chapter.
Oh, it's recreation, not.
Correct.
Okay, so this is so chapter covers agriculture, forestry, and recreation. Recreation has some requirements. I don't know how much the assessors are following up on this stuff. They haven't been,
They have to have public access.
they've historically not been very good with taking care of chapter land. I've personally, we've had some personal issues with it. And some of our neighbors have had pushback for it. But again, to keep on point here, I can find no reason that we would recommend the town to spend $96,000 on 1.34 acres of landlocked wetlands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you concur with that, Adam?
Yeah.
So I think what we'll be looking here is a recommendation or a lack of recommendation.
You'd recommend that they pass over their right of first refusal.
Are we comfy with the movement, or do we have anything more to discuss?
Short of the latter, we're ready for the former, yeah?
I would move that we recommend refusal for the right of first refusal on parcel 3 Sunny Hill Road.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Excellent.
Sign the decision at the end of the meeting.
So we can do that after comprehensive permit. Do you have something new for us?
I don't, I mean, the zoning board has had their 2 hearings. I want to thank Amanda and Matt for reviewing the comments and giving me some notes. I did send those along to the zoning board. I also sent them all to all of you, so you had a copy of what actually went in. I also want to thank Marjorie. She gave me some good notes. And the zoning board did read the comments in reference to traffic. We'll see where they kind of go from there. And I was mistaken that this was the only opportunity to comment in talking with town council. He said the board continually reserves the right to comment throughout the process as new items come up. So I would hope we won't have to go into as comprehensive a detail on commenting again, but as new information comes forward, there could be calls for review and/or discussion about what's going to be happening.
Sure.
Great.
I am currently in the process of searching out peer reviewers for the zoning board to get review on their the engineering of it and the traffic studies. We'll see where things go with the water and sewer as they move along. That seems to be the big sticking point currently.
Well, it was made very clear at the outset that that would be.
Absolutely.
So they've got a time clock on that, and their time clock, what Adam Costa say, March 13th-ish?
Yeah, and that's without agreement of the applicant to extend the time clock.
What, there's no inclination to do so. So the traffic report was supposed to be discussed at the last meeting. There was no traffic engineer. There was no engineering at all to discuss anything.
Yes.
It was all lawyer talk.
Isn't that what they mostly are?
Well, it's very disappointing because this permitting process should not be lawyer speak, in my opinion. I mean, it's already relegated to us by the state, and then we shape it here locally, and I really, everybody knows how I feel about that.
Yes.
But yeah, did you guys have opportunity to follow along with the meeting at all?
I did not know.
I did not, no.
It wasn't as long as ours, thankfully. I think it was less than 3, just less than 3.
Just less than 3, but.
And no, to your previous comment, I do not intend to get that detailed in anything other than the previous 10 subdivisions that we had already approved. And that was the primary focus of that.
Well, and I think that's more what I mean. I think as things go forward, the board has made their thoughts in general clear.
I think so.
The zoning board may have additional comments on the board's position on that existing decision and/or the waivers that go along with it.
And I did hear that the recommendation was for the waiver requests to be towards the end of the hearing process. My personal thought was to just go ahead and do that right now and get it done with, and then go to the appeals.
I think that recommendation was for the bulk of the waivers, exclusive of water and sewer. I think sorting out the water and sewer is important up front to the zoning board. And I think that's why they asked what the alternative proposal was if they weren't granted that waiver.
It was Plan B.
Yeah. So really, I just wanted to make sure that everyone had an opportunity to see the comment letter and all that fun stuff.
Yes, and thank you all for that. That was good. They did read it. They did read a considerable amount, and it was just the sewer comments from that letter that you guys put together. So that was good.
Well, credit where credit due, the letter that Adam put together that we commented on, he further edited. I want to
Oh, sure.
give credit there as well.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, thank you.
He can be quite the wordsmith.
I have my moments.
So we have next board discussions. I think we're gonna continue to table the driveways and entrances and.
Yes, I think that's what the board has decided.
And then, through my representation on the Lunenburg Municipal Building Design Committee.
Correct.
We're not really, so the culmination of our charge so far, we've come up with basically 4 concepts. And Mr. Jeffries, the chair of the select board, who was also the chair of the LMBDC, had asked for this to be on our agenda to get our input, if any. Did you guys have opportunity to take a look at the concepts?
I did not, and I don't know that I processed that I received that email.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing it.
The request came, I think, Thursday. And I don't know, he probably just sent it to me and Adam and I. Should have been included. I thought Marjorie sent it out.
I've draft select board environmental policies.
No. I got that too, I didn't read it.
Yeah, I've not. I need to.
Environmental policy. So anyways, basically what we've done is there's a 7-member group, and we had our king for a day, right? What, if we were in charge, what would we do? And everybody submitted them, and we all compared them, and we had 2 or 3 meetings where we talked about them, and well, one meeting we just spitballed, and then the next 2, we started with 3 concepts, and then through our second or a third refining meetings, we came up with a hybrid concept, and basically we've considered TC Passios, the Town Hall, the Ritter, the Brooks House, 30 School Street, which is the old primary, and we've got an others category. We've got considerations and cost implications columns on all 4 hybrids. And I'm sure that this is by no means exhaustive. It felt exhausting to go through this. However, I think that what we've come up with is pretty good stepping stone, small steps, because this, again, this has been a town issue for 10, 15 years at least. I mean, the Building Reuse Committee started in like 2012, 2013. So that's basically what this group is a continuation of, just different charter, but
Kind of the same charter.
pretty much. So, I don't know if you guys want me to read these out, or you want,
Is there a digital copy that could be sent along? Because I don't see it in my email, but I
that's
would-
right, you were in the other room, Adam. We received this from Mr. Jeffries on Wednesday, Thursday last week, and you asked me if you wanted to put it on the agenda. Oh,
Yeah, he had sent it and asked if you wanted it on the
Yeah.
agenda. I had a digital copy in my email from Marjorie.
Oh, let me look again.
Okay.
It's called bldgconcepts.pdf.
Oh, I don't see it, but let me.
It should be in the packet of 13 attachments she sent.
Yeah, I may have just failed to put that into my.
I can resend it.
Well, I'm looking right now. I bet it's there, and I missed it. Yeah, I absolutely did not download that like I meant to, so. Oh, son of a French biscuit. I closed the window.
I thought there were croissants in France. They have biscuits in France too?
I don't know. When I was a public high school teacher, I developed many false curse words to use.
Euphemisms.
Yes.
Wait a minute, is that?
And invariably, students would go, "Oh, I know what you mean." I'm like, really? Because I don't.
Well, I'm glad somebody does.
In developing this matrix, were the concepts that were done by the original reuse committee taken into consideration?
We did. We focused,
Okay.
we focused primarily on the TAPE and the,
And I ask that because I know that within what TAPE did, they looked at, say, 30 School Street for a new town hall and conceptually looked at what the programming footprint needed to be and how that fit on that site with parking and those sorts of things. And it was, this was towards the beginning of my employment here, but it was my recollection that some of those sites were discounted because they didn't seem to support the proposed need. And is there and maybe I'm misremembering, maybe I'm looking at it and they decided that they just had a preferred model, so they didn't further explore these ones that they discounted? Or is there a change in the programming or potential need that's being looked at?
well, I'm not sure we were real focused on space needs. I mean, aside from the memo that was sent out previously, a month or two ago, about the storage. And then on top of that, this group, we were asked not to look at 30 School Street like 6 months ago. Maybe not even that long ago. And it's been 6 months or less since we've actually been discussing 30 School Street, simply because it had been taken to town meeting and it had been voted on. And it's demolition for 250 or less. 250.01, it's not, right?
Something like
The money that was allocated. So,
And I only ask that because I get not taking space needs into account because it gives you an ability to reframe and think about things from a cleaner perspective. My reason for asking is I would hate to identify someplace as, or I would worry that someplace gets identified and then someone says, all right, well, what do we need for square footage? And you start calculating that out and you can't make that space work. And everything else, one of those puzzle pieces isn't going to fit in because you can't put a building that's the right size there, or you can't get parking associated with the building of the size that you need.
are you specifically talking 30 School Street?
I'm not. That just happened to be the one that sticks out to me. Honestly, the Ritter is a tight site. The parking there is abysmal currently. And if you're going to put an annex on it, and you're on a corner lot, and you start looking at setbacks, and then you have to add parking, it gets challenging.
Yes. So my understanding was that the thought was that a small addition to the Ritter would facilitate the combination of town offices. I was personally in disagreement with that. Someone, I don't know, it didn't end up getting challenged. But I don't think that a small addition to the Ritter is going to facilitate town hall. Anyways,
Well,
right.
it's not.
I get you. But anyways, this is what that group's come up with. So to answer your first question, the future town hall at TC Passios, so concept one, I guess concept one. So demolish north wing was in accordance with the preferred option 4A, I think, from the TAPE study. was demolish
Yes.
the north wing, refurbish the building, reuse the building.
Reuse the building.
Reuse the building. This is before
Well,
we get the
it-
20 grand.
renovate.
Before we got the $20 million to renovate, yeah. So, so the ones that are highlighted in yellow are the future, proposed future town hall. So concept 1 is at TC Passios. Concept 2 is at the Ritter with an annex. Concept 3 is a new building at 30 School Street. The hybrid concept apparently has fallen at Ritter still. But the hybrid concept, transition concept, so concept 1, 3, and the hybrid concept, all three of them incorporate that 4A option from the TAPE study of demolishing. My idea, my thought on that is, my understanding of the group's idea was that would get rid of some of the hazard, that would get rid of the construction costs right up front while they're still not going up. It would minimize the areas that need to be maintained. It would cut down on the general maintenance and the heating and cooling and whatnot. And it would also provide for additional parking, most likely. And so the transition space allows for the future use of the TC Passios as a new Turkey Hill, I think. I think that was in here. Or temporary space while we rebuild Turkey Hill. We went so back and forth on this. I would love to have you guys just read it, and we can have a conversation at the next meeting if you had questions. And I certainly would love to try to answer any questions you have now. But I think the basic of this is we're looking at having a new town hall at the Passios, at the Ritter, at 30 School Street, and all these other options. And then
What is 30 School Street?
the
Old
old
primary school that they're
At the
gonna
end of School
demolish.
Street?
Oh, okay, that's School Street, okay.
You know, from reading through this, it's evident that you guys have put a lot of thought and discussion into it. Experientially, I don't think the Ritter is a viable site or building to rehab and expand.
I'm not going to disagree.
Currently, there are 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. There are 9 employees in the Ritter building, with a 10th most likely on the way. And that will be every office occupied with 1 double occupancy. And that's 2 small meeting rooms that are hardly capable of holding any significant meeting. And to put an addition and parking to service the 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 12, we'll say 14 additional employees seems
Where would you put that?
expansive. And,
In the front, probably. It's the only place you could.
and, you know, we have 2 bathrooms at the Ritter building, and clearly you'd have to put more. Those bathrooms have some design issues with the connection to the sewer system. It functions well enough with 10 people, but it gets a little hairy sometimes. And it's a pipe pitch problem. So then you get into an additional building, you're probably talking multiple stories. The lift in the Ritter is known to jam, much like the lift in this building. So I don't know that in constructing a new building and building multiple stories that we would be granted the waiver that we got to put the lift in the Ritter building as a historic building, and we're into elevator territory. I think there's a lot of potential challenges
Definitely.
I think that site, I think the idea of that as school offices could have some attractiveness. It would serve fairly well for that purpose. There'd need to be some modifications because our walls don't go to the ceiling. But, all of that is details at this point.
Yep. It's all been discussed, so
Yeah.
the cost, the considerations, I think,
Yeah, I did notice that is in there. School Street or TC Passios, I think Passios has a larger fudge factor. There's more space to wiggle and maneuver for what space needs we may want or desire. I think it's important that this group be cognizant that the municipal staff is not going to be reduced over the next 50 years. And I don't say that in any manner of self-interest to preserve or get additional staff, but this town over the past 20 years has hit a level of growth and a desire for service that is seeing the municipal government professionalize significantly and requires some expansion. And as we move forward into the 21st century even further, that's only going to increase, especially with state and federal mandates coming and other things to that nature. And it would be sad to me to see a town hall designed to carry the capacity that we have now and not have opportunities for, redesign, reconfiguration, or expansion as staff comes.
I would love to have you come to the building, this group, and say what you just said.
Well, they can just watch it on tape.
I'll direct them, I'll find them, yep. I'll
And,
find the timestamp.
really, as an employee, I don't have a large office. I don't need a large office. I would love for my office to be a consistent temperature in the summer and winter. I'm a person who runs hot, so, in the summer, I expect that there'll be times that I'm warm, but I'll be warm and Marjorie will be wearing a fleece in the summer. And winter will roll around and she'll still be wearing a fleece and a vest over it, and I'll feel a breeze through my window. I think just having some general consistency throughout the buildings, wherever we happen to be, whether it's a rehab or a new building, I think that is critical. And I think, and this is sort of a wish list thing for me, but electronic access to the buildings, I think, is something that would do the town well in moving forward. It eliminates the need for tracking and managing metal keys when employees leave. It allows for tracking and understanding of who is in the buildings and when they access those buildings. We don't have a history of problems. I don't anticipate any problems. We've invested significantly in camera systems to ensure that if there is an incident, those the entrances and exits are tracked so people can identify who's coming and going. But I think that taking that to the next level and allowing employees and giving them some comfort in how they're accessing the building is important.
Super.
And more meeting space. I think that's absolutely critical. Viable, usable meeting space.
All right, so the department heads were all surveyed and all had input on this process, so I didn't want to cut you off.
That's all right.
But
Please.
this was intended to get the input of the board. So have you guys had the opportunity to review it and have input, or would you like to further review it and take input later, or is, I'm not sure that this body has any authority over that process, aside from that I'm a member of both. And everybody there seems quite workable and open, and I can certainly pass on Adam's comments, and I can pass on your comments at any time, be it tonight or some other time in the future. This just came out of the blue. We haven't met, well, I think we've skipped 2 meetings, and I think we're going to start next Monday. And I don't honestly remember what he said we were gonna try to focus on, but
I mean, I have initial thoughts, but I'd love to dive deeper into this and also ruminate a bit. But would you be better served if you had our thoughts tonight, or is it okay to wait till the next meeting?
well, I would suggest we wait till the next meeting for multiple reasons. I was hoping that Mr. Jeffries would be here to facilitate this conversation much better than I have, and he seems to have a much broader, well, he's the chair of the group, so he has a much broader understanding, and he put this spreadsheet together. We actually did most of this as a group together at the meeting, so that was interesting. And
Well, why don't I invite Mr. Jeffries to the November 14th meeting? We'll put this on as the first agenda item so he can be here in person and then go home and have dinner.
okay, and if not, you guys are welcome to come. Our meetings are remote, so they're video. She's from your home, and we do public comment at the beginning, at the end, and otherwise, I'd be happy to bring anything you guys have personally.
Great. Thank you, Matt.
Certainly. Yeah, this stuff is important, and it involves everybody. And I'm glad that Michael Ray took the initiative to reach out like that. So I think that pretty much covers my committee report. So the driveways we're gonna pass over, concepts, Lunenburg we've done, so now we're on the minutes approval. Oh, this is the stormwater.
I'm comfortable and willing to make a motion, but I don't want to cut people off from further review.
I'm good.
I would move that we approve the minutes for the planning board meeting on September 26, 2022,
No, that's not on, oh, sorry.
and for the public hearing for 245 Holman Street, also on September 26, 2022.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. So A, B, and C?
Oh, do I?
It was D&E.
You
Oh.
just did D and E.
Oh,
That's fine.
I was missing some. My bad.
That's all right.
Let me go back to that. In that case, I would also move that we approve the minutes for the planning board meeting on 9/12/2022 for the, excuse me, for the
Public hearing.
public hearing for 3 Lancaster Ave on 9/12/2022, and the public hearing for 235 Leominster Road on 9/12/2022.
I will second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Excellent.
Had those on a different note page.
Committee reports, open space. We decided to defer our October 12th meeting to November because of the ZBA October 12th meeting. So there's no report on that. The Lunenburg Municipal Building Design Committee, I think I pretty much gave the report when we were talking about the concepts. We will be meeting next Monday remotely. Agricultural Commission. I believe we had, have we met since the end
You
of?
met on Thursday.
No, have we met since the farmer's market was done? We met the end of September, didn't we?
Yeah, I think so.
Farmer's market's done for the year. It was not as vibrant as it had been in the past years. We lost a few vendors. Some people had problems finding staff to come. Other people were products of their own success. They couldn't afford to not do their farm stand and go to the farmer's market. Others just didn't work out, and we didn't have the attendance that we've had in past years either, even though the Historical Society was open. So our last meeting, last Thursday of the Agricultural Commission, there was only 3 of us in attendance, plus one of the market managers. We got the report, which basically said what I just said about the market this year, and we were spitballing ideas on what we can possibly do next year to help improve or revive, possibly. So we're looking at input on days, times, location even, with the discussions that were held for the market this year. The Lions Club had an interest in working together. The Historical Commission obviously did work with us. We'd like to reach out to the Senior Center, and we'd like to see if we can get some more collaboration with other town groups to have more of an attraction so that we can gain a better crowd and provide more opportunity for all involved. So we would love to have input on that. The discussion also included at the AgCom meeting, one of our old business items is expanding. Currently, we have 5 members and 2 alternates. The discussion was had about expanding to 7 and 2, and I believe that that would be a request made to the Select Board. So that was discussed, and that was in conjunction with the potential of holding land, and that brought up the discussion about, well, we have no staff, it's just volunteers. We don't even have support. I try not to, but on occasion I have leaned on Marjorie for some assistance and copies, and she's been kind enough to help out, but, and that discussion led to, well, can we get money from the town? Can we get a budget line item? Stuff like that. So it's winter time, and we're going to be hopefully hunkering down and planning for next year. So that's the Agricultural Commission. Capital Planning Committee?
Let me switch note pages. The Capital Planning Committee has met twice since our last planning board meeting. On September 26th, we met, and that was really effectively just the reorganization meeting. And then on the October 17th, we met and began going over really just began reviewing all of the capital planning requests and looking at the scorecards that were put together for them. And then we'll have, I haven't looked at the agenda for Wednesday yet, but I believe that is when we start to have groups coming in, presenting their cases for their specific capital planning requests.
There you go. That's where you're gonna start to learn about the town.
Yep.
All right, is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Economic Development Committee.
The EDC met on, excuse me, one sec, I apologize. The EDC met on September 22nd. We have another meeting this Thursday. Well, okay, the EDC met but did not meet. We did not have quorum, but the Lunenburg Business Association had agreed to come to the meeting and present and talk about opportunities for beneficial interaction between the groups. They still came and presented, and we got some notes to look at how the groups can work together kind of going forward.
Okay. Nice. That's it?
Yeah.
Okay. Stormwater Task Force?
We met on Thursday. We had a presentation from, I think his name was Nick, from the independent engineering firm that does,
Comprehensive Environmental Incorporated.
there you go. They're helping us with our permit, with the state. And yeah, had some great information on just what they do and what the permit's about, and gave some great ideas for Lunenburg. He mentioned putting a kiosk kind of by our catch basin so people can read and find out what they do and what their purpose is. Yeah, great information, good meeting. I think everything should be available online somewhere.
Yep. Should be. Yeah, I like Nick. I like his energy.
Yes, very knowledgeable.
Okay, that rounds out our committee reports. Oh, no, it doesn't.
Oh, you forgot.
MRPC.
MRPC, we met. It was the shortest meeting I've been to. That was nice. There was no real new information. They mentioned again about the training courses available for town employees if they so choose to do them. All that information is on their website, or not employees if you're a volunteer.
I was gonna say, and we will pay for board members to go and get training. You will have to pay, but if you submit a paid invoice, we'll reimburse you. So if there's things that you see, roles and responsibilities of planning board, site plan approval, reading, whatever you want, sign up and submit it, and Marjorie will get you reimbursed for that.
Great.
Now, that's with most trainings, isn't it?
Yes.
And not just CPTC?
Yes, yeah, I mean, as long as it's related back to
There you go.
your position within the town. You know, I mean, if you want to go and take a chainsaw class as a planning board member, I'm probably not going to pay for that, but
Come to the AgCom. Think about it.
There you go.
Amanda, I do have a question, actually. I just want to make sure, are you getting MRPC emails?
I am.
I realize I'm still getting emails from my time on the board, and I don't mind that one.
they don't take anybody off. They
I-
just keep adding.
I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure that you were getting them and there wasn't a.
No,
Oh.
no, I'm good.
So who's it, Brad Harris that sends those out? or-
Yep.
So you can ask him to remove you?
Oh, I can, but I don't mind having an ear to the ground either, so.
Sure.
Perfect. And then MJTC, we have not met since the last meeting.
Okay, very good. Meeting schedule, 6 PM. All board meetings are held at Town Hall unless otherwise indicated. Our next meeting will be November 14th. November 15th, the night after, will be our special town meeting, 7 PM. And then planning board will meet again on November 28th. And we have a whole bunch of ongoing items. Is there any update for any of those?
Is November 28th the Monday after Thanksgiving? Is that correct?
Must be.
Okay, cool. All right, great. No, I just was trying to think through everything. Super. Sorry for the interruption.
No, that's all right. I'm trying to think who else was Oh, it was building, yeah, we didn't want to do the day before Thanksgiving or something.
Yeah, we had the same issue
But that was-
for capital planning.
Wednesday, yeah. Okay. Are there any updates on any of our ongoing items?
No. I mean, we have town meeting on the 15th.
Okay.
I have to reach out to Karen on the MBTA communities. I got pulled into the comp permit, and I dropped that last week. I meant to have an update for that tonight.
Okay. The record storage, we could probably take off of there?
Yes, record storage in the Brooks House. I did send that memo to the APDC on their path to do different
Okay.
alternatives to the Brooks House.
Yeah.
Did I send that to just you, or did I send that to the whole board?
I'm not quite sure.
I don't believe I received it. So.
Okay, I'll send it out.
But I do need to address that Brooks House thing. We've been trying to avoid discussing the Brooks House at the LMBDC. A little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Apparently. All right, so then, public comment. Seeing no public? Board comment.
None.
Anybody?
I'll go on the record saying I think y'all are pretty great.
Excellent, thank you. Well, I think you're pretty cool too. I have a board comment, and it's about the ZBA and the Pondview Estates or whatever commons. So it was made very clear by the applicant that his understanding of the sewer for the 3+ miles and the water for the 3+ miles it would be an entirely municipal, totally accessible, and his words were that he would pay for the stubs for every property that it passed. So, I guess that verbally answers a question that I had about, are we gonna wanna, an unknown. We didn't know if it was gonna be a sole service like the trailer park, or if it was gonna be a full-blown sewer. Still leaves hanging all the questions in the air about the intermunicipal agreements and the zoning. So if this process is gonna be done, if the ZBA's time clock runs out in early to mid-March, then if we haven't discussed and come up with a plan for rezoning that area, then we're going to be, again, being reactive to every single thing that happens in this town. I feel like I'm on a soapbox regularly about this, but it's my own fault. I have not shown up at a select board meeting. I have not shown up at a sewer commission meeting. So I mean, it's as much my own problem as I have a problem with the whole thing in general. But there's no reason that we, as the planning board, can't talk about potential zoning changes due to a project that we know is happening, right?
That's correct.
We don't really need to we should
No,
definitely
soliciting input from other groups is positive and.
Yes. So I think maybe it's been probably, over a year that I've been trying to get everybody together
You
and
want
talk
to try
about
and
it.
schedule something for the 28th and see if they'll come and do
Well,
a short discussion at the planning board meeting at that point?
again, I think rezoning, culminates in planning board,
Correct.
right? So there's no reason that we couldn't start it on our own and have something. So basically, the members come up with questions for you, and you come back with the answers, and then we've already done one round of what the planning board sees as the potential for the future. And we've asked some questions, and we've got yeses and nos, and so from our perspective, now we're ready to ask the sewer commission, we're ready to ask the conservation commission, or the select board, whoever else is involved, what their input is. And then we could possibly put together an article for annual town meeting.
Yeah.
Now, if there's no way that this isn't gonna go to appeals.
No.
There's no way that it's not. So we have plenty of time.
I mean, clearly nothing is given, and
Given the inclination of the people that are involved in granting,
I would expect in this day and age, in the climate that we're in, that an appeal would not be an unlikely possibility.
well, given the statements that have already been made and the questions that have been asked and the responses that have been given by council, I can't foresee that we're not going to give a no that triggers the Plan B. So I'm even less confident than you are that it won't happen. But, so, I mean, it's definitely got something to do with Pondview Commons. So we've got ongoing items, we've got a comprehensive permit application category now. So maybe put it under the comprehensive permit application category,
Okay.
right? I mean, does that make sense?
Sure.
I mean, because that's,
Yeah.
that's the impetus,
Yep.
right? So I can ask some questions right now that you can have answers for at next meeting, is, well, and I'm pretty sure you've already confirmed this, is you cannot access sewer for residential through commercial zones. So if you rezone everything.
No, I don't think that that's the case.
It's not. That was my understanding.
No, you can't access property you can't access residential property through a commercial zone.
My understanding from Highfield Village, which was still active when you got here, they had to go through, they had to go off White Street and go up that cul-de-sac lane because they couldn't come off Mass Ave because the sewer was not accessible to a residential project through a commercial zone, was my understanding at that time. And maybe it's changed and maybe my recollection of my understanding is different, but
So, yes, I dealt with Highfield Village. I don't want to claim to know the details of that because most of my Highfield Village was. Oh, you want to continue? Okay.
right, we expected it.
My expectation of what you're speaking about is there was a negotiation that going White Street to Maple Parkway and cross country was more beneficial to the town. And thus, they were more willing to negotiate that manner of sewer access than they were to bang into Mass Ave and drag it up through the woods where no residents would benefit from it.
Okay.
And I could be completely wrong. It wouldn't be the first time. But I expect that there's plenty of places in town where a residential property has sewer that initiates in a commercial zone.
So we've only recently, since last town meeting, had the ability to grant extensions and easements through other properties for sewer.
They still don't do that.
I thought we approved that. No, they
I-
had, no, so they wanted the ability for in sewer service area to connect through an easement to a currently sewered property. That was the Warren article, and that was fairly contentious last meeting.
I didn't think that passed.
I thought it did, but I thought it did because yeah, anyways. So, Bright Farm had sewer service.
Yeah.
Where did it go? Did it go through the commercial district?
Yeah.
Okay, well then that answers my question, right?
It went straight down from their proposed location to Mass Ave.
Okay. So, well, I guess another conversation is to identify the parcels that the people who have expressed concern about extending the sewer are concerned about. Because the biggest piece that I can see there is conservation.
Yeah.
And conservation is not going to develop anything.
I mean, Lanny's would be the other.
Lanny's has been asking for it, and I think that they should get it.
I'm not
There's a lot of
disagreeing. I mean, that's the only other, but the majority of that parcel is, if not APR, it's on the way to APR.
It's in application, so there's almost no way that's not gonna go through. The biggest
Yeah.
concern that I can see is Pierce's Tree Farm, which is now not Pierce's anymore. That's in chapter. It's
It's-
not protected. It's not permanently protected.
Yes, correct.
So that I can see as being the biggest concern. And if it stops at, was it West Townsend or New Townsend, New West Townsend?
It would stop before New West Townsend, I would
Well,
imagine.
it goes up New West Townsend to get to Holman. I mean, Howard.
No, it goes up West Townsend. New West Townsend's the other side.
Okay, so West Townsend. So it splits off 13 before it gets to the DPW.
Yep.
So, in my recollection, there's Lonnie's, there's the conservation, there's the tree farm.
Yeah.
So I don't
And-
see
and
any
the-
development concerns.
And if I'm not mistaken, the entrance to the tree farm on West Townsend is not the tree farm's land.
Okay. Well, neither here nor
Which is,
there.
yeah, I mean,
So, there's discussion in town, and I think it's state-driven. Do we need more housing? We don't need more housing. We do need more housing. Well, that was the argument about the sewer, was that they didn't want to extend it because that's going to attract more 40Bs and greater, more dense development. Well, do you need the houses or don't you? Are you against business development? I don't know. I mean, you just can't get good commercial development without sewer, especially not out there. So, anyways, that's my repetitive 2 cents. I don't want it to fall behind, and I'd like to get the buzz in people's ears. Are there ways, if accessing for residential through commercial is not going to work, are there other ways that the zoning can control the developability? And the argument has been made, and it's true, that sewer commissions dictate is to neither promote nor discourage development. We have no such a dictate in planning board. No. We are supposed to be looking out for the best interest of the town as a whole. We're supposed to be doing our own master plan, but we're not doing that. I would think that this could be, at the very least, one of our duties that we actually do. That, and I don't know, you guys may not have been involved long enough to be frustrated, but I have. And I just, I don't mind disagreeing with people. I like to think that I'm open-minded, and I'm willing to listen to the opposition, to the other viewpoints, to everybody's viewpoint. But the discussion has to be had. It's just, if we don't talk about it, then nothing's gonna get done, and status quo. So I'm gonna step down from my soapbox.
Worthy soapbox.
Yes.
Any further board comment or concerns?
None from me.
None.
That being the case, I would look for a motion.
I would move to adjourn.
I will second.
Excellent. Any further discussion? All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
don't leave, you got stuff to sign.
You get
Yes,
signatures.
sir.
What was this roll for?
Falula?